Hi, class. This course uses a lot of templates, which are intended to help you with your actual formatting of your papers. And they're very useful because if you take a look, they're already set for Times New Roman size 12, which is what you're supposed to be using. But just to explain, at the beginning of each template, there is this message that says to complete the template, replace bracketed text with your own content. This is a bracket right here. And this is also a bracket right there. And what you're going to do is, in this case, just delete the whole thing. And then you can keep HCM 340 annotated bibliography. And you are going to put your first and last name in here and get rid of the brackets. Put in the course number and name. Put in my name and put in the date the assignment is due. And get rid of the brackets each time. You can keep the title annotated bibliography, which is right here. And from there, this is where you're going to start putting in resources, which should help you as you write your paper. So for the first one, you're going to have 3 resources dealing with the specific gap in the delivery of healthcare that you've selected. So if you've selected something about mental health for veterans, then you're going to look under veterans and mental health and, read through some articles. Just take a look and see what's available. Care coordination for chronic disease, same thing. Use the Shapiro Library. They have lots and lots of good books. So what you're going to do once you've found a few articles or a few resources, which can also be web pages, you're going to type in the title of whatever it is that you found, and then you're going to put in your APA formatted reference. And the reason you want to do that is you won't have to think about it. You can copy what you've put here, if it's correct, as you write each paper. One basic thing to remember is what goes in italics: titles of books, titles of documents or web pages, and titles of journals. And if you're using journals, then the title of the article is not italicized. So fill in this information and, of course, get rid of the brackets. And then you're going to record the website, which you also need for your APA formatting. So it's going to be https:// and the actual URL, the address of the website. For your own sake and for mine, you just want to say briefly, why is this resource important? Why do you think it's a good article? What is it about? Is the article current and relevant? And by that, I mean you usually don't want to use references that are more than 10 years old. And preferably, you should be using ones that are more recent than that, except if there isn't anything about that particular topic that has been written since. And that could have something to do with, say, the history of your gap. Is the article valid? If this is an article that does a study that has 10 participants, it's probably not the best article to use. You want to use something that really speaks in more general terms and has better conclusions. Who are the participants and why are they important? So, who is mentioned in this work? Are they actual veterans? Are they people of color? Are they people who have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease? Just write that. And then, will you use the resource in your final project? And you can say, yeah, I think I will, or I think I won't, and just explain it. If you have anything else that you want to say for your own sake, then you can write that in section I there. Then you're going to do the same thing with your second resource. You're going to give the title, the formatted reference, the website or URL, why is the resource important, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to do it one more time for resource 3. And that's all dealing with describing your gap. Next, you're going to work on describing the history of the gap. Has this been an issue historically, or is it a modern issue? So if you're talking, for instance, about the cost of medications and how they are so high and hard for the elderly to afford, then you want to go back to when the problem started, which may be 30 or 40 years ago. It's not necessarily yesterday just because we're paying attention to it now. Same thing with mental health for veterans. How long has that problem been existing? Does it go back to the Civil War? Does it go back to the beginning of Veterans Administration? And then you're going to do the same thing with resource 2 and resource 3, dealing with the history. Then you're going to look for things that talk about the impact of the socioeconomic background of the population has. So this can deal with distance, it can deal with age, it can deal with income, gender, culture, anything like that. So don't forget that location, are you living in a rural area? Is the population in a rural area and they can't access healthcare? Look at things like that when you're researching. So you're going to do that with 3 articles or resources. Then you're going to describe how the healthcare delivered to the population is affected by the gap in access, which is basically what's their everyday life like. If they can't afford their medications, what are they doing or what's happening to them? If they can't access mental health care or they can't get to a specialist for a chronic condition, what does that mean in terms of their everyday life? And you're going to do the same thing with 3 sources of information. And finally, you're going to go into, you're going to look for implications if the gap's not addressed. What can happen down the line? If people can't afford their medications, what is going to happen or what could happen to the population? What does that mean in terms of deaths or increased hospitalizations? With mental health care for veterans, what can that do to themselves, to their families, to the population as a whole? With chronic care, same thing. Are we going to see increased hospitalizations because they didn't get the right care coordination, or perhaps they couldn't even afford the right care coordination? So you're going to do the same thing, listing 3 resources, and you're done. And even though it seems like a lot of work, the beauty of it is, as I mentioned, if you do the APA format and record the URL correctly here, you can just copy that when you're writing your first, second, and third milestone paper. And you can also use this source that you've come up with to tell you what articles to go to help you when you're writing the paper itself. So you can see that this basically takes care of the research. And after this, it's pretty much, gravy. You're going to be looking at a few other things, of course, such as what is being done and what could be done in the future. But this is going to be a good basis for your papers. If you have any questions about this, please give me a call. Thank you.